Thanks, Paul. Thanks everyone for listening, and appreciate people hanging around. As Paul said, it's getting pretty late, and it's great to have this number of people in the room. So, Great Boulder, small Perth-based company, West Australian asset. We've been around for a few years, listed in 2016. We're still a small group of people, about 10 employees. And this is where our flagship project, the Sidewell project near Meekatharra in Western Australia. So what we're building there, what I'll explain to you now, is really the story that we're building this 1.5 million ounce resource. We're in the middle of existing infrastructure. There are 2 or 3 mills within a 50-kilometre radius. I'll talk about them in a sec. We're right next door to Westgold. Obviously, they're the big boys in town in Meekatharra. And it's a very interesting technical story, and all the geologists in the room love this story, because what we've found is really a whole new style of mineralisation in Meekatharra on the very doorstep of one of Western Australia's most historic goldfields. I won't dwell on the corporate side of things. You can refer to this on our website, or this was announced on the ASX this morning. But basically, key facts here: $53 million market cap, or thereabouts, obviously bouncing around substantially this week in both directions. Very strong board and some extremely high-level geological expertise. But now getting down to the nuts and bolts, and this is really our Sidewell project here on the outskirts of Meekatharra, and there's a few key takeaways here. I'm going to go through all of these prospects during the presentation, but the first thing to point out is really this big fold structure here, the Pol-El syncline. And what that means is effectively where we're drilling is a lot of these targets are the eastern side of the same greenstone belt as Paddy's Flat at Meekatharra, which is a multi-million ounce production centre, been mined on and off for over 100 years. And yet, despite that and proximity to town, a lot of these areas have never been explored prior to us, and we've already discovered brand new gold deposits out there just a few minutes away from town. The central corridor in the middle, where we've got Mulga Bill, is this blue area. This is in a very large volcaniclastic sequence. It's undercover. There's no surface expression of mineralisation. It was drilled back in the 90s, but people didn't really recognise what was there. I'll show you Mulga Bill. We think that there's potential there for more than 1 million ounces just in one open pit scenario. So this is the area. Meekatharra in the middle, Sidewell just off to the side. 3 mills there on those tombstone graphics. You've got Andy Well to the north, that they're just going into production now, 700,000 tonnes per annum. Bluebird is the big one, 1.8 million tonnes per annum. That's about 25 kilometres away. And then 48 k's to the south, we've got the Burnakura processing plant, which is currently in care and maintenance. We've just announced an agreement with those guys to do a scoping study on them restarting Burnakura and us mining ironbark. So they're complementary assets in that sense. Zooming into Sidewell, you can see the Mulga Bill and ironbark deposits are the areas at which we've currently got mineral resources. We are currently adding resources there, and we will be updating that this year. The timing of that will become clearer as we go forward, but the first thing we'll probably do is update Mulga Bill itself. That will be an incremental update, and then we can commence some sort of engineering studies on that. So zooming in to Mulga Bill itself, now this is really the engine room of this area, and will be really the engine room of our growth. And you can see there's 2 styles of loads there. We've got the subvertical intrusive related lodes, and this is what I was saying about a new style of mineralisation. These intrusive related systems have credits to be actually very large, and then overprinted on top of that are these really high grade quartz vein systems dipping to the west, where we get extremely high grades and often well over 1 ounce per tonne. Putting our drilling on top of that, this pit here was done a year ago, a bit over a year ago, at 2,500 Australian dollars per ounce. So we would expect that to grow considerably. Now that is just a Whittle optimisation shell. It's not an ore reserve or a mine design, but we will look to update that. And the other key thing here is if you look up to the north, you can see there's substantial room for growth there, and that's what we're calling the Eagle Hawk area, and that looks like it could be the same size again. So we've got 500,000 ounces in resource at Mulga Bill, and we think potentially another 500,000 or more at Eagle Hawk. Just zipping across a bit over 1.5 km to the southeast, we've made this ironbark discovery. Now this is about 600 metres long, 100,000 ounces from surface. So this is a very valuable little deposit. We're now doing a scoping study on ironbark, which should be ready in the next 6 to 8 weeks. What we actually think is the present value of ironbark itself should be well in excess of our current market capitalisation. So that just demonstrates, or will demonstrate, how junior companies like us are vastly undervalued compared to the assets that we have in the ground. If you then continue to the south, we get to our more recent saltbush discovery. Now this is somewhat smaller, currently about 300 metres long. The interesting thing here, we've tracked this to the north and it's plunging to depth and continues, but we actually decided to stop drilling it. We got down to about 150 vertical metres and that's deep enough. We will wrap a resource around this in the next few weeks. So now getting back to plan view, this is the Mulga Bill Eagle Hawk system that I was talking about. Interesting thing here, we've drilled this out over a mineralised area of about 6 kilometres. So that's what we're calling the central corridor or Mulga Bill corridor. And to the north, it is really only, it hasn't been tested basically. So there's another sort of 3 or 4 Ks potential for that to continue. And our geochemical modelling would suggest that this area here is roughly the middle. And if it is symmetrical, then it could easily extend well to the north, and that becomes a very large target. We think at the moment that $2,500 per ounce Whittle shell was about 1,100 metres long. We could end up with a single open pit here, 2 or 3 kilometres long, with over 1 million ounces in it and some extremely high grades. To give you an idea of the quantum of the grades, this was, we had last year the highest grade exploration intersection in the world for 3 or 4 months, and that was over 3,000 grams per tonne. This is a plan view on the right, just showing where the mineral resource is at the moment. We will shortly expand that about 300 metres to the north with drilling that we've already done. That will be in the next resource update. Then beyond that, we have on this long section, this Eagle Hawk area, where we're drilling right now, or up until just a couple of days ago, we've only just moved the rig. There's a lot more drilling to do there. You can see a lot of that drilling is relatively shallow, and the potential at depth is extraordinary. This is a truly company-making opportunity. Zooming in slightly to Eagle Hawk itself, this is a map that we've been using for a little while now, and this is essentially our key target is this dacitic volcanoclastic unit here, which is where these high-grade quartz veins are focused. And it's taken us a while to identify this particular unit, and you can see that a lot of the previous drilling has been too far to the west. Now that we've identified exactly the location of this dacite target, we expect our exploration to be much more efficient going forward, and we've already seen announcements like 3 metres at 46 grams per tonne, which we put out recently, and that just demonstrates that we know what we're doing, and the drilling is hitting the high notes. Moving across to ironbark, this is where I was saying we're doing the scoping study. So this is very, very simple, steep dipping, tabular lodes, or basically daylighting its surface. This is the sort of thing that people are mining around the eastern goldfields every day. And again, some good intersections and high grades there, like 5 metres at 51 grams per tonne. So having made the ironbark discovery, we then started to contemplate how many more of these things would there be. The first thing we tested was saltbush. Our second RC hole there hit high grade straight away. So that was a very easy win. And we then continued that process looking south. And this is where area is not undercover, so we're using very simple auger geochemistry, looking for ironbark style targets, and basically we've found heaps of them. So One that we've been testing recently is this big gold, arsenic, antimony anomaly here. That's 2.4 kilometres long, and we think we've found quite a number of different new lodes of gold mineralisation around there, which will require follow-up drilling in the next few months. So one of the people, our key supporters, who's had a big input into the company is Dr. Scott Halley, who's, I think, Australia's best geochemist. And he made this comment a couple of years ago now that the combined auger coverage down this eastern corridor has defined a hydrothermal gold system bigger in extent than the Paddy's Flat gold camp. Now, bear in mind that Paddy's Flat is a multi-million ounce gold camp, and we're really just scratching the surface of this system. Continuing further south again, we've also recently put out this announcement of new targets down here. This is right down at the south end of our project. So if you measure that mineralised corridor down to this area here, that's about 22 kilometres of strike kilometres of targets. And then there's a couple more Ks down the bottom as well. So we're really, you know, we're well endowed with gold targets, and really it's just a matter of getting the metres in the ground to define all of these things. So that's all very well, but what does that mean in terms of the future? Well, this is the current resource, 2/3 of a million ounces, 2.8 grams per tonne, which is a nice grade to start with. I'd just point out that if you report that at a 2 gram cut-off, you get 500,000 ounces at over 5 grams a tonne, so it is a properly high-grade resource. We've already done some metallurgy on Mulga Bill just to see what this looks like as a milling proposition. We really were very pleased and surprised by the results that we got, which are extremely good, fast leaching, very, very high recoveries and moderate cyanide consumption. So this is the sort of product that could go through anybody's mill at any standard cyanide leach process. So really moving forward, we've got these scoping studies underway. We're advancing mining agreements and mining tenement applications for Ironbark first, and then there'll be other mining leases to follow behind that. And the challenge for us is to demonstrate the value in this project as fast as we can, because we think that we are quite vulnerable as a small company capped at around 55 million bucks. Given time, we will have 1.5 million ounces in the ground in the next 1 to 2 years, and we aim to push this forward as a standalone development. So if you draw a circle around us within a 200 kilometre radius, which includes Plutonic to the north and Ramelius to the south, there's over 10 million tonnes of milling capacity within that. We don't necessarily need to build our own milling capacity if we don't have to, but the operation will be big enough that we think we can justify and build that as well ourselves. Whether Great Boulder remains alive for that time remains to be seen, because Westgold, they're the big guys, Ramelius to the south and Catalyst to the north. There's plenty of big players in the area, and this is a very, very attractive opportunity. So there's a list of reasons here why I invest in GBR, but really the bottom line is because we are really badly undervalued, and we're working very hard to change that situation as quick as we can. So that's all I've got for you today. So thanks for your attention, and I'll see you out in the booth for a beer.